Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another deck profile. So today's deck is going to be Dragon World Purgatory Knights. So Purgatory Knights has been around for a while and they've been getting dual cards called Reborn Purgatory Knights. So as of War of the Dragods, they have enough Reborn cards or dual world cards where I think that a Dragon World build of Purgatory Knights is possible. It does have certain matchups where it's good against, and certain matchups where it's bad against. But that's just what comes with every deck. So our buddy here is the newest version of the Purgatory Knight leader, Orcus Sword Dragon. So what he does is if you have another armor dragon on your field, if it were to be destroyed and put into the drop, you could put it into its soul instead. And then he has a counter ability where you may destroy another armor dragon on your field and stand him up and get another attack phase and draw a card. So on top of him getting more attacks, the more you do it, the more you draw. And he naturally has move, soul guard, and double attack. So he's pretty good. So with that being said, in the main deck we run 4 of the buddy. We have to run the buddy. He is what the deck is centered around, and he's how the deck functions as a whole. So we need to have 4 of him for the deck to work. Next we run 4 copies of Purgatory Knights Reborn Silverstaff Dragon. So when he's destroyed by a card effect, you gain 1 life. If he's in the soul of an armor dragon, which your buddy is an armor dragon, it gets penetrate. So a lot of the Reborn Knights have if this card's in the soul of a armor dragon. So he's going to sack them all, and he's going to get a whole bunch of different buffs and skills for each of the different Reborn dragons. So we're running 4 of each because we need to see them, and we need to have enough sack outlets for the buddy in order to work. So we run 4 Purgatory Knights Reborn Crossbow Dragon. Crossbow Dragon, like the others, when it's destroyed, you get to put the top card of your deck into the gauge. And then if he's in the soul of an armor dragon, that armor dragon gets plus 2,000 power, plus 2,000 defense. So, not bad. Then we run Purgatory Knights Reborn Needleclaw Dragon. So this one, when it's destroyed by the effect, you get to put the top 2 cards of your deck into your gauge, and you gain 2 life. So it's just a better crossbow dragon. It also gives a slightly different benefit. It gives plus 5,000 power and penetrate. So he's pretty good. Then we run Purgatory Knights Reborn Holy Grebe Dragon. So when he's destroyed by the card effect, you get to draw a card. And then if he's in the soul of an armor dragon, that armor dragon gets counterattack. So with all of these stacked up in the buddy, he can be a pretty big body, and he could hit pretty hard and multiple times. Then, as some spicy options, I'm choosing to play 4 Bloody Chainsaw Dragon. This is basically a Purgatory Knight without being a Purgatory Knight. So when it's destroyed by a card effect, doesn't even have to be by battle, just says card effect, you get to draw a card. So he's just there to help draw cards, fill his soul up. So that's it for the monsters of the deck. Next we have our spells. So this is the newest spell that came out with War of the Dragods. It's Pride to the Sword, the Blade Never Dies, and you can only cast this when your opponent's attacking if you have an armor dragon on your field. Everything in here is an armor dragon. You can sack an armor dragon and sack a Purgatory Knight more specifically, nullify the attack, deal 2 damage to your opponent, and gain 2 life. So not only is it triggering these guys' abilities if you have any of them on the field, but it's also gaining you 2 life and dealing 2 damage, which is pretty big. Next, we run 2 copies of Dragotrap. This is just a classic staple defense spell for Dragon World. Pay 1 gauge, pay 2 life, choose a monster, that monster can't attack. Pretty simple, pretty good. Then we run 2 copies of Buddy Block. It's just another really good generic defense spell. You pay 1 gauge, you choose one of the 2, prevent the next 3 damage that would be dealt to you, or reduce it. And then if an opponent attacked 4 or more times during this turn, basically you just take no damage for any further attacks. So it's a pretty good defensive spell. Next, we run 3 copies of Gar-Segen. So with Purgatory Knights being able to attack a whole bunch of times, and that's like the whole gimmick, is have Orcus attack, stand, double attack, sack, stand, attack again, sack, stand, attack again. You're getting like 4 or 5 attacks off in a turn. So with that, we can use cards to take advantage of that. So this is one of the cards that can take advantage of it, where its only casting condition is if you attacked 3 or more times. Pretty easy to do. And if you do, you can gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. It's just a really good draw spell. Then we run 3 Sky Dragon Divinity. Just, again, another generic good draw spell for Dragon World. You can only cast this card if you have 10 or less cards in your drop, and because most of the cards are monsters you're sacrificing and they're going into a soul instead of the drop, I'm not super worried about not hitting the casting conditions. But on top of that, you pay 1 gauge, pay 1 life, and you could put 3 cards from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck. If you do, draw 2 cards. Just, again, pretty good Dragon World draw spell. Next, I run 2 copies of Dragod Var. So this is a pretty good card because of how it can be used, and it can be utilized in 2 different ways, and its conditions, again, are very easy to meet because we're going to have lots of cards in our soul with our Purgatory leader basically putting the destroyed monsters into his soul. So Dragod Var has the option to either remove all of the soul and destroy of a monster and destroy that monster, or you could destroy a card on your opponent's field. Could be a monster, set spell, item, what be it. And if you do, draw a card. So it has that utility of it could be drawing you a card, or it could be destroying potentially the biggest thing on the field to help you push damage through. Next, we run 2 copies of Into the Future. It has a similar condition to Dragod Var, except it's more specifically removing a soul from an armor dragon, which thankfully Purgatory Knights are also armor dragons. But on top of that, it has 3 options, and you auto-draw no matter which option you pick. So you could either give a card on your field +1 critical, which would be pretty cool, having him swing for 3 each time, especially if you're hitting for 3 to 4 to 5 attacks a turn. It's pretty good. Or you could stand a card on your field, which basically just gives you another attack, which is also pretty good. Or you could use it defensively to rest a card on your opponent's field. So it's a card, not monster, so it could rest a weapon, or it could rest a monster. So it could be used both offensively and defensively, on top of which it draws you a card. It's a really good card. And then the last spell we run is Loyalty. Loyalty is just another good defensive spell. You reduce the damage you take by 2, or you could put a card from a soul from a monster onto the field to the drop, so it takes away soul from the opponent's soul guard. But the most important part about Loyalty is your opponent can't call more than 3 monsters. So on the call of their 3rd monster, you pop down Loyalty, and it basically shuts off them from continuing with whatever combo they're trying to do. or set up. So it could be pretty big in a lot of the matchups. So we run 2 loyalty. And then for the weapons, we run 4 Purgatory Knights Reborn Sword, Expia Sword. So what this sword basically does is it's just a tutor for Orcus. So we need to run 4 of it for consistency's sake. On top of which, it also buffs all of your Purgatory Knights on your field. So it has obviously good synergy with all of the Purgatory Knights, because you attack with the Purgatory Knight, then you attack with Orcus, then you sack the Purgatory Knight you attacked with to Orcus to get another Orcus attack. It's just really good. The only card it doesn't synergize with is Bloody Chainsaw, because he's not a Purgatory Knight, but Bloody Chainsaw's in there just for the card draw anyway. So we run 4 of the Sword Reborn, and then lastly, we run 2 impacts. We run Thunder Lance X Tempest Buster. So it's a really good finisher for the deck when you just sometimes can't necessarily finish off and deal enough damage. So what this card does is both player centers need to be open. On your turn, your center is always going to be open because you can attack with your weapon, you can attack with the Purgatory Knight, and then you attack with Orcus last. So your center is always going to be open. And then the other condition is you need to have attacked at least 3 or more times during the turn. So again, it's a pretty easy condition to meet. And then you just pay 3 gauge and deal 5 damage. Can't be nullified, can't be reduced. And what's also important is your opponent can't revive. So it shuts down any strategy that has like a revive failsafe to try to like survive one more turn. This just turns it off. So it's pretty good, the fact that it just turns off revives. And it's easy and it works with the deck. You could run the Chaos version of it. There's really no difference other than the Chaos version. You just need to attack 4 times. It's just as easy as a condition to meet, and it's still very easy and possible to do. So, yeah. I don't have exactly a sideboard built for this deck yet, but I do have a whole bunch of options. So you could run Buddy Option. So Buddy Option is just a good staple card. You just stick it into the soul just to add another soul. Then if you really feel like it, you could just, if you don't have the correct setup, you could give your buddy plus 5,000 power and penetrate. So either works. It's just a tech card. You could run Time Sale. We have a good amount of cards that deal damage to us, and then we also have a good amount of cards that give us life. So, like, you could get yourself down to 3, cast it, then start gaining yourself back the life just for the card draw. Or if some of these options are too expensive or hard to find, this is also just a good generic draw spell option. You could also run Bots X Link. It's another card where you need to have attacked 3 times or more, and then basically you look at the top 3, pick a card among them, and then charge the rest and gain a life. It's just another pretty good draw spell you could run. Then you could also run Sorcery Barrier Device. So this just makes it so the dealing damage cards don't really deal as much or if any damage. So it's just okay. What's important about the card is all abilities of all cards on your field can't be nullified. So it's important for keeping the Soul Guard ability on Orcus, because when he loses that and he's just destroyed and all of the cards in his soul are gone, it becomes a lot harder to try to like catch back up. And having all of his abilities is important. Next, you could run Dragonic Force Field. Most of the time, you'll use this on Orcus during your combat steps so that he doesn't get destroyed. You could use it if they're targeting Orcus to just have him not get destroyed either. It's just a very flexible utility card to just try to keep Orcus around. Same thing with second barrier. Second barrier's more on the enemy phase attacks, where Dragonic Force could be either. And it basically does almost the same thing. You just choose a size. You only get to choose one, but it's always going to be Orcus because that's what you really care about. So you just choose one size 2, and that monster can't be destroyed by attacks. So it just keeps him around. The only problem is he can't be in your center for you to cast this. But outside of that, it's just a good option. You could also run 5th Omni Cavalier, Sandstaff. This is just another Armor Dragon sack outlet you could run. It gives you a gauge and gains you a life on destruction, and when you take damage from card effects, you could just move it to your center. So it could have a little bit of a defensive option to it, on top of which you really just care about the destroy trigger and the fact that you're gaining a benefit for having your stuff being destroyed. And this is just another card that fits into that archetype in Dragon World. And then lastly, this card isn't exactly out yet. It's coming out soon. It's Breaking Blade Impulse. So what this card does is it's similar to Dragotrap, except it rests 2 cards on your opponent's field. So that's pretty good. You could run it over Dragotrap. It costs life instead of gauge and life. And it rests 2 things instead of stopping 1 thing from attacking. You won't get the G-Boost part off, but that's fine. You don't necessarily care about the extra draw, considering the deck already has a good amount of draw. And then, obviously, if you really wanted to, you could just run Lost World. Yeah. It doesn't really have a whole lot of synergy, but, it's always just a good plan B if you just want to run Lost World. But, yeah, that's mainly the bulk of the deck, and some extra options you could run. I found that the only real cards you're losing out in Darkness Dragon World are 5 cards. You're losing out on Demios early. He's just a really good size 1 Purgatory Knight. And he's played in all Darkness Dragon World builds, so he's one of the big cards you're losing out on. You're also losing out on Necropalm, one of the other good size 1 Purgatory Knights. So he just summons another Purgatory Knight, gives you another attack, extends it. It's pretty good. You're losing out on that. You're also losing on Blood Oath Formation. It's just another defense and draw spell rolled into 1. So it just helps you not die to certain matchups. So you're losing out on that by playing Dragon World. You're also losing out on Crush That Body and Sustain Mine. This is just a really good set spell to gain you gauge, and if you were to die, you yourself can revive. So it's just a pretty good card. And then lastly, you're missing out on Demios' Sword. It's just more card draw, and that's really all you use it for, is just the card draw. And yeah, given how the meta is, sometimes you don't necessarily need some of these, which is why I chose to go with a Dragon World build. Not only is it something different and unique and something people aren't expecting to see, but it has some good, interesting options for you to choose from in terms of other cards to gain the advantages that you're losing, all of the multi-attack synergy cards. You get your rest cards for defenses, and then you're not really playing anything else but the Reborns most of the time, and Bloody Chainsaw is just a good option for Dragon World Purgatory Knights. So yeah, that's the deck profile on Dragon World Purgatory Knights. I hope you enjoyed it. It was definitely a lot of fun to make and a lot of fun to test and play with. So with all that being said, I hope you like and subscribe for more deck videos, and I'll catch you on the flip side.